legendary castle that was built in the middle of, well, nowhere. It sits atop a sinister secret buried underneath. Well, according to the local lore, this castle was constructed to cover and contain a gateway to hell. Yes, friends, a gateway to hell. I'm not pulling your leg here. And that is what pulled me in. That is what made me like, wait, what? I gotta know more. As if that wasn't enough, this castle is also believed to once be used for torture and experimentation on people. This castle sits atop a limestone mountainside covering a crack in the earth. Before its construction, prisoners were granted pardon if they were willing to be lowered into the pit to explore its contents. Well, after a few of these attempts went really, really wrong, the townspeople were like, maybe we'll just cover it up and just pretend like none of this ever happened. Great idea, Bob. Let's do that. So, that's what they did. And to this day, the castle is still a hotspot for paranormal activity abound. And you can actually tour it. So, Houska Castle, where is it? It sits about 30 miles north of Prague in the countryside of the Czech Republic. It is arguably one of the most mysterious sites in the world. Based on its architecture, historians have reason to believe that the structure was not built like a traditional castle to keep people from getting in. Instead, it was built in a manner to keep something from getting out. What do you mean? Well, like, if you were to look at the inside courtyard, this castle is almost like a big square with a square courtyard inside. And that courtyard has no windows, only a couple doors, and these balconies that line the inside. A perfect place for troops to purge themselves if they're trying to keep whatever is inside from getting out and go to battle from these balconies. The current owners of the castle are no strangers to paranormal experiences. In an interview with one of the current owners, Susanna Pavlik-Simonkova, she talked about how her grandfather had bought the castle and it had been in their family since 1924, aside from a short break, which we will get into what that short break was. Her father, Jaromir Simonek, also talked about how his father owned the woods around the castle, and his father had observed it falling into decay, and he was like, well, I've got the money, let's buy this castle and restore it to its current glory, which I love, because anytime I see older buildings, it just makes me so sad to see them fall into disrepair. Like, couldn't they be used for something? Susanna goes on to say that the chapel on this property has weird energy. They use a chapel to host wedding ceremonies, and on many occasions, people have fainted. Lights have been seen flickering and light bulbs exploding. It's not a very rare occasion here. Even electricians were brought onto the property and could not figure out what would cause these electrical issues, as everything looked to be connected properly and in working order. So, question, are these spirits harnessing the energy from this portal to hell? Could the limestone in the ground also act as a conductor? Look, and on top of all of that, the history of this land itself has seen much bloodshed and war. So could that energy still be lingering in the atmosphere? There are so many questions surrounding this castle, and one of the first questions and most asked questions is, what the heck was this thing built for? And why would people not understand what it was built for. Well, this castle is built on a forest mountainside in an area that is unfavorable to hunting. It's far from local trade routes. It also is not close to any type of running water, streams, rivers, nothing. And as mentioned before, the fortifications of the castle were not built on the outside walls to protect against the outside world. They were built around the inside courtyard. This inside courtyard also was originally built without any stairs accessing the upper levels. So it's just an odd way for this thing to be constructed. There's so many questions and no answers still. What is it that was inside the castle walls that they were trying to keep inside? So, in comes the gateway to hell. So, before the castle was constructed, there was a crack in the earth. And it was said that these creatures, these humanoid, demonic creatures, were crawling out of this crack, and they were terrorizing the villagers down below. They were tearing open their livestock, limb to limb. And they were just, these poor townspeople were just living in fear because they saw these things, these big winged humanoid, like, ugh. And the townspeople were like, we need to do something. So the first thing they attempted was like, let's close it up. We gotta seal this thing up. So they tried to like put rocks and stones and other things in it, but nothing would work. This was a bottomless pit. Nothing would close it up. Well, then the townspeople were like, you know what? We need to know what really is going on in there. And someone came up with this brilliant idea. Oh my god, you guys, why don't we? Let's offer the prisoners who were sentenced to death that if they're down to go into this crack to let us know what the hell is going on down there, we can pardon them for their crimes. Right, guys, good idea. Well, the townspeople were like, yeah, we're down. Let's send the people on death row, because if something happens to them, well, we were gonna kill them anyway. So that's what they did. So they went to the prisoners that were waiting to be executed, and they're like, hey guys, well, we got a proposition for you. If you'd like to be pardoned of your crimes, we're gonna send you on this one little mission. We're gonna tie a rope around you, and we're gonna lower you into this hole on the top of the mountainside, and we just need you to like tell us what's in there. Well, word had already spread to the people, and even these prisoners were like, most of them were like, hell no, I'm not going in there, just kill me. I don't want to know what's in there. I'd rather not know what's in there. And one person after another was like, nope, nope, nope. Eventually, they got someone that said yes. Wonderful. So, they get this prisoner. Let's call him Bob. And Bob steps forward, and Bob is terrified. They get to the top of the mountain, and they begin to tie the rope around his waist. And Bob was lowered into the crack in the earth, farther and farther down into the darkness, to where he couldn't be seen by those above, and he himself, Bob couldn't see a thing. All was quiet as they lowered him farther and farther, until a shrill scream came from below, blood-curdling, gut-wrenching, pure, palpable terror. He begged to be pulled up, and the townspeople began pulling up his rope as fast as they could, and Bob just continued to scream, hurry, 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 you guys. just physically, his mind had aged. He had lost his dang marbles to the point that they couldn't even get a straight story out of him. Like, the most they could get out of Bob was that he began to hear distant screaming as he was lowered in, and that was when he screamed to be brought out. But in the following days, Bob's mind just deteriorated at an alarming rate, and within a couple weeks, he died of heart conditions. Oh, Bob, no. But then again, what did he? We don't know what he did. Maybe Bob was not. Maybe it was good. I don't know. Yeah. So, at a certain point, the townspeople were like, well, we gotta find another way. Somewhere around this point, the castle was constructed over this hole. And it was said by the constructor at the time, when it was constructed, it was supposed to hold a bunch of, like, paperwork for some local aristocrat. But we all know it was covering that hole where Bob lost his marbles. So not only was this castle built over the crack in the earth, but they built a chapel directly over the pit itself. Because if anything was going to really keep the evil out, it was putting a chapel, a church over it to be like, good luck. Stand there, biatches, find another way out. What is odd about this chapel, though, is the murals that cover the walls in this chapel. They don't depict the predictable, like, biblical images. Instead, they show images of dragons, demonic creatures, and pagan rituals being performed. So, and it's also said that people can still hear screams and wails coming from the floors, as if the creatures are still trying to claw their way out. And now, this chapel that appears demonic in nature, ironically was dedicated, or not ironically I guess, but was dedicated to the Archangel Michael, which, if you know who he is, he led God's army against Lucifer and his band of fallen angels and misfits. He basically kicked their asses, he sent them packing. So, like, everything sounds right, but when you see it, you're like, is that what this is? Let's talk about the murals in this chapel. Well, one of these pagan murals depicts a half-woman, half-horse shooting a bow with her left hand. So, already a pagan creature, and being left-handed was a sign of the devil back in those days, which I guess that puts me in a really unfavorable spot if I was to live back then. Now, here's where it gets exciting, and you can see this in some videos of ghost hunters that have actually gone to the castle. I will link below some of those videos, but under the chapel is what is known as the cellar. The property owner lovingly calls this place Satan's office. And why is it called Satan's office? Well, on top of just the things that were painted actually, like, on the walls of this chapel back in the day, this place itself has just other references to Satan all over the place. And these, from what I can tell, are things that have been brought in by the homeowner, which is just, maybe it's just to add to the ambiance, but I think that clearly if it already has a certain energy and you're bringing that, it's probably going to add to that satanic energy. There are busts, statues, lighting fixtures, murals of satanic creatures. There's even an art exhibit within the castle today based off of someone's vision of hell. Despite the efforts to cover this pit, evil still found its way to the fortress. Some creatures that have been seen, paranormal things that have been seen here, include a headless horse, a classic guardian is supposed to keep things in or keep things out is unknown. And lastly, this one I'm not a fan of. A humanoid creature described as a bullfrog, bulldog, human creature. Did you catch that? Bullfrog, bulldog, human creature. I'm just saying. I don't want to imagine that, especially at night, especially in the dark, especially running or hopping or whatever the heck it would be doing towards me. No thank you. Now let's talk about the current owners. Remember how they said that there was like a time period where they didn't own the land, or they didn't like have control over this land, this property? Well, I'm gonna tell you why. Between 1939 and 1945, the Czech Republic was occupied by the Nazis. Yeah, no one really knows exactly what the Nazis were doing at Houska Castle, but there's plenty of speculation. We do know that they did take it over. It's said that these Nazis were trying to do a few different things in this castle. One thing it said that they were trying to do is they brought in lots of women and they were trying to give birth to this new Aryan race. And basically breed the perfect race. So the locals were all abuzz about the Nazis using the power of demons for their experiments that took place in the castle walls. It's said that the Nazis were drawn to the castle because of the lore associated with it. It sparked their interest to cultivate the powers of hell for their experiments. It is believed that they used the castle to hide 13,000 manuscripts of the SS leader Heinrich Himmler, who was obsessed with the occult. And Himmler super believed that he could summon the power of the occult to help Nazis basically rule the entire world. How did that go, Himmler? Locals and prisoners of war were unfortunately said to have been taken to the castle, never to be seen again, where these people experimented on. Now, one of the wildest claims is that Hitler used to teleport from Houska Castle to other places in the world. To this day, there are people who believe that Houska Castle is a portal for time travel. I couldn't find enough backup aside from one really wild claim, so maybe we revisit this, but time travel, yeah, kind of interesting if Hitler was also claiming, or there were claims that Hitler used this to transport himself. The owner actually had a weird experience where he received this odd phone call of someone that wanted to meet with him to talk about the castle. When this person and him met up, he came and he had brought his daughter with him. So when this person saw that he did not come alone to the meeting, this person got really reluctant to divulge much. And what he pretty much simply said to the property owner was, it's really important that the spirits of that castle be treated with respect. And the owner described this man as having blonde hair and striking blue eyes and looking almost unworldly. Like if you ever met someone and you're like, something's off, and I don't know what it is, I don't know if it's them, but something isn't right here. And that is the exact feeling that he got. Like, I don't know, could have been an alien, or could it have been a time traveler? So, also interestingly enough, a few years after the war, German soldiers were found buried under the floorboards of the castle. What did they know? That they were killed and buried there? Or was this a part of a ritual performed by the Nazis? So, a question that I have thought about is, why not open up this place today? Why not open up this crack in the earth and see what lies within it? Well, superstition, right? Do we want to release what's in there? Also, excavation of an ancient castle, especially one like this, that's believed to be one of the oldest castles in that entire region. You're excavating an ancient piece of history, so it might not even be allowed. Another reason it might not be a good idea to open this place up is there are real worries that the Nazis may have planted bombs that could be detonated if a full excavation was to be taken on, because it's believed that there's also just underground tunnels. So, as I said, underneath the chapel there is Satan's office. You go in and there is a room underneath the chapel, and it's like you can see the stone, you can see what material is beneath this castle, and it's all got, it's like a cavern almost. But if you were to go looking and trying to find maybe covered up passageways, what would you find? Now, I may have found an explanation for at least why the fortification walls are only on the inside of this castle. I don't want to burst anyone's bubble, but this made a little sense. So this is something that I found on a website written in Czech. It is the Association of Castles and Chateau Owners, and this is what they had to say. Listen to this and tell me what you think. Okay, it's a little bit broken because I had to translate it to English. Okay. In connection with the development of artillery at the end of the 15th or beginning of the 16th century, massive exterior fortifications were created, thanks to which Houska Castle was assessed as impregnable even after the 30 Years' War. In the years of 1584 to 1590, the core of the castle was rebuilt by the Herzog of Harasov family into a Renaissance chateau. So cute. When, among other things, the entire current entrance wing was created. Now, after the end of the 30 Years' War, the Habsburgs issued an order to demolish all castles, which, in the event of another war, could become strongholds for the enemy, and Houska Castle was among the castles that were ordered to be demolished. So, however, in 1658, the owners of the castle estate negotiated that only certain parts of the castle were demolished. So they negotiated the square-shaped early Gothic tower was taken down, that the fortification walls on the outside were removed, walkways, there's a farm building in the castle forecourt, and all building materials that were demolished were used to fill in the castle moats. So, although a total destruction of the castle did not happen as originally planned, Houska did lose its fortification system at this time. It's a big part of the mystery that no one wants to talk about. So, if the Association of Castles and Chateau Owners is correct, that explains quite a bit. But where does folklore like this even come from? Because clearly it's been around for a really long time. When did it start? Do you believe that something lurks underneath the grounds of Houska Castle? Have you been to Houska Castle? Are you near Houska Castle? Did I get everything right? Is there anything I missed that people need to know about Houska Castle? Because this story pulled me this way, that way, this way, that way, and honestly, this is my second time recording this because I tried to record it once, and I just felt like I was all over the place. It was not an easy one to put together because there's so many little stories, and taking this web and making it into a cohesive tale, I really struggled with. So Is there something that we should talk about next time? Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Namaste.